Porsche reinvents its Macan mid-sized SUV for a new electric era. It's completely different in almost every way from its combustion predecessor, but thankfully there's also much that's quite familiar. The Macan Electric is very much a Porsche at heart. Here, in the most complete and comprehensive test you'll find on this car, we're going to tell you why. For Porsche, this is where the EV revolution starts getting serious. It was one thing to launch a supplementary full electric model, the Taycan, in 2020, but quite another to replace the Macan, its combustion bestseller, with this all-electric version, though unlike in Europe, the older petrol Macan continued to be on sale in the UK at the time of this test in early 2025, with no end date yet in sight. That original fossil-fueled model, with over 800,000 global sales over 2 generations racked up since it was launched back in 2014, shared its SUV development with an equivalent but quite different Audi, the Q5. As does this, its replacement, which shares much, though not quite everything, with another Audi, the Q6 e-tron we've just recently tested. The much includes the 100 kilowatt-hour battery that all Macan Electrics share, and the PPE, Premium Platform Electric, underpinnings that will also underpin the brand's larger Cayenne Electric, a model undergoing its final testing program as we completed this film. Development of this Macan Electric was fraught with difficulty. The original early 2024 global launch was fully 12 months behind schedule, by which time the car's original name, e-Macan, had been shortened to merely Macan. Just like the old model then, though nothing else is. Contrary to appearances, absolutely everything is different here, even in some cases the badge. But Porsche claims the driving experience will be recognisable. After all, it needs older generation customers to be comfortable with this EV transition if electric models are indeed to account for 8 out of every 10 Porsches sold by 2030. By then, the idea of a Macan Electric will seem natural. Right now, though, it seems like a whole new era is just beginning. Will you want to be part of it at the wheel of one of these? Well, to decide, you'll need the usual comprehensive car and driving road test. Preconceptions can be misleading. Yes, this Macan Electric's based on the platform and engineering of an Audi, a Q6 e-tron. And yes, its wardrobe-sized underfloor 100 kilowatt-hour battery, 95 kilowatt-hours of which is usable, means a 2.3-ton curb weight, around 400 kilograms heavier than a combustion Macan. But there are positives to the EV transition too. This Macan Electric centre of gravity is a massive 140 millimetres lower than its predecessor, and it's considerably faster as well, even in the entry-level rear-driven single-motor Macan Electric variant that ought to be quite sufficient for most. That base version gets the same big battery as every other model in the lineup. Unlike Audi, Porsche isn't offering a smaller 83 kilowatt-hour unit, and the two-wheel drive Macan Electric pairs it with a 360 PS rear motor, propelling the car to 62 miles an hour in 5.7 seconds. Range is up to 398 miles, which is the furthest you can go in any version of this car between charges. Not the only reason why we suspect that this most affordable derivative might just represent the all-round sweet spot in the lineup. The car is fully 110 kilograms lighter in two-wheel drive form, and you'll feel that at speed through the bends. Despite that though, most will want this car in dual motor all-wheel drive form with a motor on each axle, both Bosch developed units. The mid-level Macan 4 variant that we're trying here will be the strongest seller. This offers 387 PS, but with overboost and launch control engaged, that increases to 408 PS, and the car sprints to 62 miles an hour in 5.2 seconds, en route to 137 miles an hour. If you engage the sport mode and feel yourself able to decimate the official EV driving range figure of up to 380 miles that Porsche wants to quote. With the Sport Chrono package fitted, you'll get an extra Sport Plus mode too. The usual settings are normal and sport. Porsche clearly couldn't bring itself to include an eco or efficiency style setting. If you've more in the budget, the next stage up is a significantly faster Macan 4S variant with 516 PS that improves the 62 mph stat to 4.1 seconds. Range with that version is up to 377 miles. Find the extra for the even more powerful Macan Turbo, and Porsche introduces a bespoke rear motor from its own tuning division, which ups power to 584 PS or as much as 639 PS on overboost with up to 1,130 Newton meters of torque. Now that slashes the 62 mile an hour sprint figure to just 3.3 seconds on the way to a most un-EV-like top speed of 162 miles an hour. Range is up to 367 miles. Despite the model name, there's no turbocharger, of course, developing all this thrust. But the Turbo does standardize the adaptive air suspension system that costs extra elsewhere in the range. Oh yes, the ride. On a mainstream model, you might not necessarily want to stretch to air suspension, but you'll probably want adaptive damping, the PASM system that we've got fitted here, which for the first time features two valve technology, which separately adjusts the bounce and rebound elements, giving a wider spectrum between comfort and performance, but which unfortunately Porsche feels the need to charge quite a bit extra for. Now, without this, you might find the standard steel coil springs to be just that bit on the firm side. Whatever suspension layout is chosen, body control at speed through tighter turns is first rate, very Porsche, as is traction through the turns, helped by an electronically controlled ePTM Porsche traction management system that operates around 5 times faster than a conventional all-wheel drive system and can respond to slip much faster than you could ever sense it, within 10 milliseconds. Cornering gets even more assured if you pay extra for 2 further options. The first of these is something that's never previously been seen on a Macan: rear axle steering. We've been trying that here. At speed through the corners, the system hydraulically jacks the rear wheels against their suspension bushes, which turns them by up to 5 degrees. And sure enough, it really does give a greater feeling of stability. For ultimate turning traction, you'd also want Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus, another thing that's only standard on the Turbo, which acts as an electronic rear differential lock, distributing power to each rear wheel according to traction and yaw rates. There were fears before this car's launch that its shared Audi platform and powertrain would dilute its drive experience. Now, as we've already suggested, that hasn't happened. Considerable efforts were made by Zuffenhausen to that end. The big, heavy, unwieldy feeling that you get when turning in at speed with most other comparable EVs simply doesn't apply here. So instead of turning in merely on trust and instinct, you really feel like you're part of the driving process. Believe me, very few EVs are like this. There are some key reasons why. Unlike in a Q6 e-tron, the motors are positioned 911-like, significantly behind their respective axles to create a weight balance more conducive to expressive handling. Even more evident to anyone who takes the time to try both these cars will be the considerable amount of effort Porsche has put into steering feel, which you should find in terms of engagement is unlike anything that Ingolstadt makes. Of course, there are times when you want less steering feel, not more. when urban manoeuvring, for instance. And for those occasions, Porsche offers an optional Power Steering Plus setup, which we've actually been trying here. This works really well combined with the Super Mini-like 11.1 metre turning circle you get when rear axle steering is fitted. What else? Well, refinement is really very good indeed, even by silent EV standards, which might make you want to pay extra for simulated drivetrain sound, the optional Porsche Electric Sport Sound package that's been fitted here, which we actually think sounds quite good. Have a listen on the Porsche configurator. Another thing surprisingly lacking from the standard spec is steering wheel paddle operation for the adjustable regenerative braking. That's because Porsche, rather controversially, thinks that sort of setup has a negligible effect on the amount of recovered electricity. Instead, the very sophisticated brake regen system primarily works automatically, but if you really want to influence it, there's an option to do so hidden away in the center screen menu. The blend of brake energy recuperation and friction braking is, as expected, expertly judged. And towers will be interested to know that a Macan Electric can tug along up to 2 tons. Finally, will this car go off-road? Well, yes, as the provision of an off-road drive setting suggests, but we can't imagine any likely owner really wanting it to. For the few that do, Porsche offers an off-road design package which gives bigger clearance angles. With this, a modified profile of the front bumper increases the approach angle to up to 17.4 degrees, and if you specify air suspension, ground clearance can potentially be raised by 10 millimeters to 195 millimeters. Much is familiar here, even if on paper everything is different. Recognisable for Macan regulars is the typical Porsche flyline silhouette, the chunky, power-packed, high-waisted profile with its swept-back roofline, short overhangs, strong shoulders and frameless doors. It's a small size up from the combustion car. The 4,784mm body length is 103mm longer and considerably more aerodynamic. The old model's 0.35 CD drag factor reduced to just 0.25 CD here, aided by a flat underfloor and sleeker finishing for the big wheels, 20 to 22 inches since you ask. Unusually, there's a charging flap on both sides, and these characteristic lower door side blades can come in various finishes. The flat bonnet look is borrowed from the old car too, though the headlights are different, divided into 2 parts. This flat upper light unit with 4-point daytime running lights is embedded in the wings and emphasises the width of the car. The main headlight module with optional matrix LED technology we've got fitted here is positioned slightly lower in the front end. The socket air intakes further down in the lower valance offer a Taycan vibe, and there are active cooling shutters to further aid the aerodynamics. At the back, the 15mm width increase over the combustion Macan is emphasised by this full-width 3D light bar with its central Porsche logo. There's also an adaptive rear spoiler which rises at speed. It's annoying though that Porsche makes you pay extra for a rear wiper. Of more importance, of course, is what you can't see, the PPE platform with its advanced 800-volt architecture that this car shares with its close cousin, the Audi Q6 e-tron. Will the interior be an equally interesting mix of past, present and future? Let's pull back the frameless door and take a look. Now, there are certainly lots of recognisable design cues in the dark cabin, though you'd have to be familiar with the brand's most recent models to recognise most of them. Principally the uncowled 3-dial 12.6-inch curved driver's instrument display, along with a 10.9-inch central touchscreen that, as usual with the brand, is properly integrated into the fascia, and on request can be optionally paired with another 10.9-inch screen ahead of the front passenger. You sit quite low, up to 28mm lower than in the previous Macan, but the double buttressed centre console still gives quite a cockpit cockpit-like feel. And if you paid extra for it, there's the familiar Porsche Sport Chrono stopwatch positioned high on the double-stitched dash top. Most customers of this car will want that, offering as it does the feeling that you're about to attempt a lap time at the Nürburgring, when all you're actually doing is nipping down to Waitrose. Once you've adjusted to the Taycan-like gear shifter positioned high on the dash, you should find the rather over-buttoned, chunky three-spoke wheel looks satisfyingly Porsche-like too. Beyond it can be added an augmented reality head-up display that projects its information to an effective 10 meters ahead of the driver, which corresponds to a rather distracting 87-inch display on the glass ahead. Otherwise, the ergonomics are pretty faultless. That's an impression emphasized by perfectly positioned sports seats and a separation of climate controls from the center touchscreen, unlike in a rival Mercedes EQE SUV. They sit on this smart, shiny climate control panel designed intentionally to flex as you access the controls. Those powered seats, by the way, are brilliantly supportive, even if you don't pay the extra for 14 or 18 way adjustment. Now let's tell you more about this Porsche Communication Management Central Touchscreen. It's a new generation Google Android powered monitor with wondrous graphics, rapid response times, frequent over-the-air updates, a dedicated EV charging section, and of course, wireless functionality for the Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring systems. As is the current trend, the home screen displays in two ways. You can choose a customizable widget format, which here has been set to show sections for navigation, audio, and quick access features, or you can swipe left and get a screen full of little icons. These include an app center for downloading third-party applications, a section where you can configure cabin lighting themes, and if you've the Sport Chrono package, a section allowing you to record lap times, analyze circuit performance, and input racetrack data. Everything else you'll need is on this clearly configured driver's instrument display. Now this offers a choice of various layouts, including full screen mapping and a calm screen with the minimum of info. You might prefer a dial style format though, in which case you'll choose between the options that give you two outer dials, one for speed on the left and another for information on the right, the latter configurable to show either nav instructions, trip data, a Sport Chrono stopwatch, audio selection, or battery functions. You can configure the instrument layout to have these two outer gauges separated by either a central power meter, nav mapping, or a drive assist graphic. What else? Well, Porsche has built in one of those interaction light strips running the full width of the front of the cabin, acting as both ambient lighting and a communication light, providing information or warnings. This one, though, is unusual because instead of following the base of the windscreen, it runs across the dashboard before completing its span into the doors. Build quality? Well, that's what you'd expect for the money, and with the extended leather package fitted, the cabin will feel properly high-end. Cabin storage space is okay. You've got this central armrest, which is quite a deep space. There are twin USB-C ports just under this climate panel. The cup holders down here are illuminated. There's also a 15-watt wireless phone charger in a hidden lidded cubby between the central air vents, which is beautifully cooled. Your handset will never have been so well looked after. The door bins are bigger than they look, but will still hold little more than a bottle. Where you'd really notice this Macan Electric's fundamentally new design if you owned the previous petrol model is in the rear. With 2,893 millimeters between the wheels, there's 86 millimeters of extra wheelbase length. And the result is that a 6-footer can now sit behind a front seat occupant of similar size in far more comfort than was the case with the old car. It's some way off the palatial feel you'd get in a Hyundai Ioniq 5 though, and thanks to the rakish rear end, headroom is merely adequate and not particularly good at all for really lofty folk when this optional panoramic roof is fitted. You expect to be positioned quite high in the back of an EV, but this one actually sits you up to 15mm lower than its previous combustion counterpart. We don't usually expect the bench of an EV to slide, but we would like to see the backrest recline. This bench can't do either. For this amount of money, you might expect climate controls in the rear. Typically for Porsche, those cost extra. There's an open cubby here where the missing 4-zone system control panel would sit. That small width increase for this EV model over its combustion predecessor hasn't made any difference to the difficulty of fitting in a middle-seated adult back here. Still a squash, and not helped by the sculpting of the seat and the slightly raised centre tunnel. But knee room's aided by these scalloped front seat backs, which have storage nets. You get the usual centre armrest with cup holders, but because the door speakers are so large, there's no room for proper door bins, only bottle holders. Porsche provides 2 USB-C ports back here, plus overhead reading lights and a coat hook on each B-pillar. Out back, you might be irritated to find that there's no boot catch. From the key fob, the powered tailgate rises to reveal a decently sized 540 litre cargo area, which is 43 litres more than the old model, but it won't be much use for large, tall items thanks to the swept back tailgate. At least the boot floor can be flush with the impractically silver trimmed load lip, facilitating getting awkward items in, though there's very little space under that floor, and will be even less if you've spent big on an audio upgrade that'll necessitate the fitment of a big subwoofer under here, as in this case. Recesses left and right with storage nets make it easier to get awkward items in widthwise, like golf bags or push chairs. And there are 4 silver tie downs, an elasticated strap on the left, and, if you've specified it, a button for the retracting tow bar on the right. Porsche doesn't seem to have thought much about bag hooks, there's only one, nor have the designers thought to put lights on the inner side of the tailgate to facilitate loading at night. The 40-20-40 split rear bench means that longer items like skis can be slid forward between 2 rear-seated occupants. And if you use these sidewall catches to flatten everything, there's up to 1,348 litres of space available. We haven't yet finished either. Because Porsche has designed what it calls an integrated power box for the onboard AC charger, the high voltage heater and the 12-volt DC to DC converter, a box which sits between the rear seats and the lower battery, space has been freed up for a useful 84-litre underbonnet frunk for the charging leads, or maybe a carry-on suitcase. The warning triangle sits here, and there's even room for a little compartment for the first aid kit. Add the space in this illuminated area to the boot capacity and you've 136 litres more cargo area capacity than was offered by the combustion Macan. As we filmed in early 2025, prices were starting from £68,500 for the base Macan Electric, a single motor rear-driven 360 PS model. As for the dual motor variants, well, at the time of our test, Porsche wanted around £71,000 for the Macan 4 that we're trying here with 408 PS, likely to be the strongest seller. It's around £77,000 for the Macan 4S with 516 PS and around £97,000 for the top Macan Turbo with 639 PS. Expect to see a Macan GTS variant slotted in between those two top derivatives in future. The UK is the only country in Europe where this electric Macan is being sold alongside the old combustion version. Now, interestingly, that old petrol model got discontinued on the continent not because it couldn't meet emissions, but because its electronic architecture didn't meet the cyber security demands in the EU's general safety requirement applicable from July 2024. So, you see, we really do have something to thank Brexit for after all. Direct comparisons between combustion and electric Macans are obviously problematic, but in rough terms, in case you're wondering, this EV version costs around £12,000 more. if we were you, we'd also be wondering just how much more this Porsche costs than an equivalent version of its development stablemate, Audi's Q6 e-tron. The answer is that the Audi undercuts this Macan Electric quite substantially by around £7,000, though if you equalise battery capacity, motor power and equipment, the difference is more like £4,000. You might well be prepared to pay that, given that this Porsche is the sportiest drive in the segment. There's nothing else quite like it. Probably BMW's iX gets closest, a car now priced very similarly to this Macan, but not available in the single motor rear-driven form that quite a few potential customers of this Porsche might want. If you're happy with a slightly less dynamic drive, there's the Polestar 3, which costs about the same, or the Mercedes EQE SUV, which in rough terms costs around £5,000 more. Bear in mind that you don't have to pay this much for this kind of premium badged upper mid-sized electric SUV. The perfectly acceptable Lexus RZ starts from around £50,000 and the Genesis GV70 electrified costs from around £64,000. But none of these cars is really quite like a Macan Electric, so you might conclude that there's really nothing quite like one of these, in which case you're going to need to know about the standard spec, so let's take a look at that now. There's nothing particularly generous here, and you'd have to spend a considerable amount to bring the spec of this car up to match that of the Lexus and Genesis models just mentioned. Across the range, every Macan Electric gets wheels of at least 20 inches in size, LED headlamps and tail lights, power folding mirrors, a powered tailgate, all-round parking sensors, cruise control, an alarm and a heat pump. Inside, all variants get a 12.6-inch curved driver's instrument display, 2-zone climate control with a pollen filter, 8-way power-adjustable comfort front seats, upholstery in a combination of sport tex and leatherette, an auto-dimming rearview mirror and a 15-watt wireless charging mat. Media features on the 10.9-inch centre screen include navigation, Apple CarPlay, Android Auto wireless smartphone mirroring, and a 10-speaker 150-watt sound package plus audio system. Plus there's a reversing camera. What about options? The key thing to start with, we think, is Porsche Active Suspension Management Adaptive Damping. And we'd recommend considering the rear axle steering system we've been trying here if your Porsche Centre offers the chance to do so for its extra cornering stability and urban manoeuvrability. Both those things have been fitted to this test car, along with quite a few other optional items a lot of potential customers might want. Matrix LED headlamps, the Porsche Electric Sport sound system with its buzzy fake powertrain noise, aluminium roof rails, a panoramic roof, and a 14-speaker 710-watt Bose surround sound system. Other drive stuff fitted here includes adaptive cruise control. You have to pay extra for that. And we also got the Power Steering Plus system, which reduces parking effort at low speeds, as well as a surround view camera setup with active parking support to steer you into spaces. Now that little lot added around £12,000 to the cost of this car, and it'd be easy to more than double that spend without too much effort. Many customers will want the brand's usual Sport Chrono package. We've got that here as well, which gives you an extra Sport Plus drive mode, a PSM Sport mode, a lap timer, and the usual Porsche Sport Chrono dashtop analog and digital stopwatch. Serious drivers who haven't stretched to the top turbo version will want to add the optional Porsche Torque Vectoring Plus system for extra cornering traction. And if you've an extra £2,000 or so in the budget, adaptive air suspension would be a very nice thing to have. Other extras you might want to look at include an augmented reality head-up display, a supplementary passenger display screen, comfort access keyless entry, a 4-zone climate system with rear seat controls, an air quality system, rear side window blinds, 14 or 18-way adjustable front seats, and even louder 21-speaker 1,470-watt Burmester surround sound audio system, and Porsche's inner drive camera drive assist setup with active lane keeping. We'd want to add a rear wiper too. You can also add front and rear seat heating, front seat ventilation, a heated windscreen, a thermally insulated windscreen, rear privacy glass, a heated steering wheel, a race text roof liner and stainless steel pedals. As usual, Porsche aim to make a small fortune selling you various aesthetic exterior and interior trimming packages, too many to list here. In this case, we've got a two-tone leather interior in black and blackberry. For extroverts, brighter shades are available. We'd want the optional multifunction GT Sport steering wheel, and you can add real leather upholstery, spend more on softer club leather, or get an extended leather package which extends leather onto the dash and doors, all extremely pricey. Unless you get your Macan Electric in solid black or white, your chosen paint colour will also be costly. Here we've got Provence, which as you can see is a kind of purple. You'll want to finish the effect with your choice of finish for the flanking side blades. As standard, they come in this textured lava black, but you can also have them in body colour, carbon or high gloss black. You can add larger 21 or 22-inch wheels too, which can also be painted, though larger rims will noticeably damage ride quality unless you option the air sprung system with them. Porsche will supply a branded wall box for home charging if you want it, and there's a roof transport system with crossbars for the carriage of a roof box and carriers for skis, snowboards and bikes. There's even a roof tent. Here we've got a retractable tow bar fitted, and you can get a boot liner, a luggage box, a reversible luggage compartment mat, a luggage area partition net and a leather luggage set. There's also an off-road design package with a differently shaped bumper, allowing for greater slope angles. Porsche has at least had to get more generous with regard to standard safety specification in recent years, and the result is a 5-star Euro NCAP test showing. On the test, this car was rated 90% for adult occupant protection and child occupant protection, and 83% for vulnerable road user protection. The Macan Electric comes with brake assist, lane change assist, traffic sign recognition, intersection assist, swerve and turn assist, driver awareness detection and lane keeping assist, including an emergency stop function. You get all the usual assistance for braking, traction and stability control, plus a full complement of airbags, including side airbags and a front centre bag linked to an e-call system. Rear side airbags are optional, and Porsche also charges extra for the front passenger seat, child seat, ISOFIX mounting point we have here. In our driving section, we gave you the drive range figures, but not the official variants in them. For the full picture, we should tell you that Porsche quotes 333 to 398 miles for the rear-driven Macan Electric, 321 to 380 miles for this Macan 4, 318 to 377 miles for the 4S, and 322 to 367 miles for the Turbo. We include the lower figures here because experience on this test suggests that they're a far better and still perhaps slightly optimistic barometer of what you'll actually get in day-to-day use. During this test, in this Macan 4 model on mixed roads driving quite hard, we've been achieving around 2.9 miles per kilowatt hour, which translates into a real-world range figure of around 275 miles. About 300 miles in everyday use should, we think, be regularly achievable. Incidentally, the improvement of the 0.35 CD drag factor of the combustion Macan to the much sleeker 0.25 CD factor that applies here equates to a range benefit of 53 miles. That's well worth having. We should also say, of course, that driving efficiency depends on regularly selecting the most frugal of the available drive modes, normal, and is aided by a sophisticated brake regen system apparently capable of capturing up to 240 kilowatts of energy. That setup doesn't offer the expected steering wheel paddles. There's an auto regen system instead, though if you really want to influence it, there's the option to do so via the center screen, though not to the extent where one pedal driving will be possible. As with any EV though, what certainly won't be possible is zero emissions motoring. Factor in the environmental penalty of creating the energy used to charge this car, and its CO2 emissions equate to a rate of 33.2 grams per kilometre. Now, this Macan can't quite match the impressive 320 kilowatt charging speed of its Taycan showroom stablemate, but thanks to the 800 volt charging tech, it can, like that larger model, use the new generation of ultra-rapid 270 kilowatt public DC chargers, assuming you can find one. Hooked up to one of those, you'd get 60 miles of range in less than 4 minutes, and a 10 to 80% DC charge of the 100 kilowatt hour battery, only 95 kilowatt hours of which is usable in just 21 minutes. The NMC battery uses prismatic cells, unlike the Taycan, which uses pouches. Charging times are comparable to the Taycan, and the navigation system considers traffic conditions and topography to get you to the nearest charging station, and you can decide in advance how much charge you want in the cells when you arrive. If that arrival finds you needing to connect to a DC charger optimized for older tech 400 volt EVs, this Macan is able to cleverly split its 800 volt system and charge each bank of batteries separately, charging each at 135 kilowatts. That does away with the need there'd otherwise be for an onboard 400 volt to 800 volt converter, saving weight and complexity. As for AC charging from home, well, it'll help that Porsche has borrowed a trick from Audi and conveniently installed an 11 kilowatt AC charge port on each side of the car, though unlike with the Q6 e-tron, the flaps aren't motorized. Full charging from a typical 7.4 kilowatt wall box will take 13 hours empty to full. If your property or business has a 3-phase supply allowing you to install an 11 kilowatt wall box, you can reduce that full charging time figure to around 10 hours. You can manage your battery replenishment regime via a charging section of the car's central infotainment screen, through which you can set charge times or either pre-cool or preheat the cabin. Plus, of course, as usual, you can also manage things remotely via a provided app. If you're converting to an EV from a previous conventional combustion model, you'll obviously need to factor in the cost of an EV charger for your home and perhaps also your office. Now, there's still complexity around the best charging hardware to choose and who is eligible for a government grant. And obviously, the costs can vary depending on the distance from your main meter to the charger and on other factors. There's lots of advice out there, of course, to guide you. We consulted plugmein.com, who offer customers everything from choice of charger to installation and ongoing maintenance. What else? Well, as usual with EVs, insurance groups will be high, starting at Group 45E for the entry-level single motor model, Group 46E for this Macan 4, and Group 50 for the turbo version. But you'll claim a little back in terms of VED road tax, set at just £10 for the first year. You'll also save, of course, on a low benefit-in-kind taxation rating, set at 3% in the 2025-2026 period immediately following this test, then due to rise for a further 1% a year for the 2 years following that. You may not be aware, though, that EVs now have to pay the London congestion charge, though unlike combustion models, they're still free from paying ULEZ zone charges. You'd hope that residuals on a Porsche would be strong, but they are. Experts expect that after 3 years and 36,000 miles, a Macan Electric will hold on to 55 to 57% of its original value. For comparison, an Audi Q6 e-tron manages 50 to 55%, and the Mercedes EQE SUV 49 to 53%. Servicing is every 24 months or 20,000 miles, whichever comes sooner. And there's 3 years unlimited mileage warranty with the car, plus 8 years and 100,000 miles of cover for the battery, during which time Porsche guarantees that the cells will retain at least 70% of capacity. Otherwise, the battery will be replaced. We shouldn't be surprised by the care with which Porsche has developed this electric Macan. Much of the company's future does, after all, depend on it. Many of the lessons learnt from the Taycan have helped create an EV that feels more intrinsically Porsche-like. Transitioning from a Panamera to a Taycan still requires a seismic shift in perception, but that needn't be true for a combustion Macan customer switching into this battery-powered version. Don't worry if you can't stretch to a dual-motor version like this one. This car will impress you even in its base single-motor guise, which is just as well given the premium prices being asked across the lineup. And the spend will be unlikely to end there because, as usual with Porsche, the standard spec isn't particularly generous. Once you compare like with like against rivals, you'll find that the price difference to get yourself into one of these will probably be considerably higher than the initial purchase pricing suggests. But you might well think it's worth it. No, this battery-powered Macan isn't a game changer in the way the combustion original was, but it is good enough to reset customer expectations for just how engaging a mid-sized premium sports EV crossover of this kind can be. And thankfully, Porsche has managed to create a distinctly different confection from the equivalent Audi version of this design. A Porsche should feel like a Porsche, and a Macan like a Macan. This one does.